Hello, my name is GHenry, Grassroots Engagement Director with Americans for Prosperity. I wanted to make this quick video addressing the Nashville Taxpayer Protection Act. I wanted to provide just a quick update as to what's happened recently over the last few weeks, where the Nashville Taxpayer Protection Act is sitting currently, and what the future looks like as well. If you have not heard of the Nashville Taxpayer Protection Act, let me start the most logical spot just by telling you what this is, what this was proposing to do, and what it would end up changing if passed. The Nashville Taxpayer Protection Act is a referendum that was going to be held on July 27th in Nashville. It will change 6 different things. First and foremost, it will limit property tax rates increases. So this would have taken the current property tax rate and rolled that back to what it was in 2019 prior to this ridiculous 34% property tax increase that we had then. It also would have set a cap at 3%, so no more than a 3% property tax rate increase per year without voter approval. As you see, number 2 here would have made it a little bit easier to recall elected officials who just refuse to listen to their own constituents. It also would have made it so that, hey, we have no more lifetime or other expensive benefits for elected officials. There's also some protections in here for voter-sponsored charter amendments. This simply means that any amendment that's passed by a referendum also has to be removed by a referendum process. We also have some protection for publicly owned parks, greenways, and lands. It requires 31 votes from Metro Council for giveaway of any publicly owned land, or any land over value of $5 million requires a full-on referendum. And lastly, it has some clawback provisions in there for these sort of promises that were made to induce people to come to Nashville, businesses to come to Nashville. It just protects our promises made to Nashville. Now, you may have heard me say there before that this was a vote that was going to be held on July 27th. And the reason for that past tense is because of this headline right here. Now, you'll see as of June 22nd, I'll highlight it right there. As of June 22nd, Chancellor Perkins decided this headline. Well, he didn't decide the headline, but this headline came from his decision. Metro property tax charter referendum struck down. Election will not be held on July 27th. The election will not be held on July 27th. And just quickly, a portion of the reason behind that is this. The ruling made by Chancellor Russell Perkins stated that, quote, given that the 6 proposed amendments are not severable, none of 4 good government's proposed amendments to the Metropolitan Government's Charter are permitted to be considered for referendum election on July 27th. Now, the legal reasons behind what that means and why that decision was made is going to have to be left for a separate video, unfortunately. And we can get into that later if you want to, but I will say this much. This ruling once again silences Nashville's voters and taxpayers who continue to be saddled with the harmful tax increases. Nashvillians are tired of Mayor Cooper and Metro's spending addiction that put this city in jeopardy and possible takeover by the state itself. This court's decision only perpetuates the fiscal mismanagement that we've seen and places an even greater need on the state legislature to strengthen our Truth-In-Taxation law that will insert some sense of fiscal responsibility into the city's finances and allow voters to reject corporate welfare and massive tax hikes. We at Americans for Prosperity, we will continue to advocate for taxpayers throughout the state and work to bring structural reform that reins in Nashville's outrageous spending. Now, you heard me mention just a second ago about something called Truth-In-Taxation. Americans for Prosperity is going to continue to work on something called Truth-In-Taxation. That's one of the next steps for Americans for Prosperity. If you don't know what this is, Truth-In-Taxation, you've heard of it, you may have seen it. It's currently operating in Tennessee in some capacity right now. If you don't know about it, you might know of something called the certified tax rate. This is already happening in Tennessee. The Tennessee certified tax rate is a process that's designed to ensure something called Truth-In-Taxation following a county-wide reappraisal. The process ensures that the amount of total taxes collected for a county remain the same after reappraisal, even if the combined value of your property in the county rose or fell following the reappraisal. All right, so what does that mean? It basically means this. In Tennessee, we feel that just because the value of your home goes up doesn't necessarily mean that the local government should receive more tax revenue. Just because your home is worth more doesn't mean that you should be paying more every single year. If local government wants you to pay more, pass a property tax increase. something called the certified tax rate. It's already happening in Tennessee. So higher values during a reappraisal do not necessarily mean higher taxes. The law requires the counties and cities to re-examine property tax rates after a reappraisal to make sure that higher taxable values do not automatically result in a tax increase. All right, so everyone understands with where we're at now. Here is what I'm talking about. There's a proposed legislation that Americans for Prosperity was very close to getting out of subcommittee last year. We will be following this again this next year coming up. Pay attention to this. Here's what I'm saying. What would this new proposed legislation do? When a city or a county has a reckless spending and debt problem like Nashville, any city or county that has a debt ratio over 10%, the city, will be required to mail a detailed notice to all citizens in advance of a proposed property tax increase. People will know exactly how much their individual taxes might go up. They will know what their current tax rate is, and they will know when this vote will be held. Furthermore, and perhaps most importantly, the citizens will have the opportunity to be heard before these officials actually cast their vote. So, officials can choose to listen to their constituents' concerns during these public hearings, or they can ignore those concerns while still holding public office. You understand the implication. The legislation will give taxpayers a fighting chance when local governments officials decide to levy this massive tax increase. And obviously what we're going here for is sort of a three-pronged approach: accountability, reliability, and competitiveness. Accountability. Now, while something like this proposed change to state law, it wouldn't limit property tax increases, but it does make local officials consider and think twice about increasing property tax rates. There's also a reliability system in here, and that Truth-In-Taxation is a revenue-driven system. It is not a tax rate-driven system. We went over that previously. And lastly, it ensures competitiveness. When this version of the law, the full Truth-In-Taxation, was passed in Utah in 1985, Utah then ranked 24th in the nation in property taxes paid per $1,000 of personal income. Utah now ranks 36th. Even still, over the last 3 decades, property tax revenues of the state of Utah have grown faster than inflation and population growth combined. You understand what we're saying there? Even though now people in Utah are paying less in actual property taxes per $1,000 of income than they did before, the state itself of Utah is receiving more in property tax revenue than it has previously. It's growing faster than inflation and population growth combined, presumably because they're competitive and people are moving there. You understand what I'm saying here? Now, let me cap all of this by saying this quick update with a little sliver of hope as to where the Nashville Taxpayer Protection Act is. We just went over what the 6 changes that it was going to do, that it will do. We just went over the decision from Chancellor Perkins to not allow the vote on July 27th. I just went over what a possible change at the state level could be. Pay attention with Americans for Prosperity to work on this next legislative year. This would be across the state here to any localities that have a debt ratio above 10%. Lastly, though, this sliver of hope specifically for the Nashville Taxpayer Protection Act is this headline here from News Channel 5. This was just last Friday. Get out of my face paywall. Davidson County Election Commission votes to appeal judge's ruling on the charter referendum. That's correct. The Election Commission has decided to appeal Chancellor Perkins' decision. Now, I'm being told they're asking for an expedited appeal. Will take, maybe about another month to actually get something definitive here. However, in the meantime, they have set a provisional date for late September. The commission has also conditionally set a new election date in September in case they win this appeal. So that's the final update there, is that the Election Commission has decided to appeal the decision. If you don't know what happened there, Metro government ended up suing the Election Commission. Metro government won through Chancellor Perkins, and the Election Commission is now appealing that decision back through. They set a new conditional date based on the condition that they win this appeal that will be held in late September. So pay attention. I will be giving more updates along the way, but I just want to go over and give this brief rundown as to what happened previously, what we could potentially do at the state level to solve this going forward, and that we will be watching this as we get closer to that September timeframe. If you have any questions at all, reach out to me personally, 615-330-4569, or my email, ghenry@afphq.org. Look forward to hearing from all of you soon.